Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to Scripting Thursdays. I'm going to make a little announcement at the end, but in case anybody drops off, I'll tell you now, we're actually moving to Scripting Fridays next week, so watch for that. But today, we're actually going to deliver on a promise I made in my sales meeting last week, which was to do a deeper dive on how you can be the one-stop shop for your seller leads. So let me launch my screen and share this and do that and hide this. All right. So welcome to Scripting Thursdays. I always skip through that little background about me, but if you want to know about me, you can ask me questions. But what the question on the screen obviously is, what if you could be everything your seller needs, right? And if you think of it like this, sellers, they have a few different options in approaches to getting their home sold. And then they have tens of thousands of options in real estate brokers in your market, right? Like here in the Northwest MLS, which I'm part of, we have 30,000 licensed real estate brokers. So the directions and the approaches that sellers typically want usually fall into one of three categories, right? A cash offer, quick sale, close in 10 days, that kind of thing. Listing it and selling it on the market, but selling it as is, maybe doing some spruce up, but really just getting it on the market, right? And then there's the ARV approach, or as repaired value, which is remodeling it or improving it and then putting it on the open market, right? And that can be, I've done them as little as $5,000 to $7,000 cleanups and landscape packages, up to and including over $300,000 gut job remodels. So depending on what the home looks like, what the seller's needs are, their equity position, et cetera, that can be a great approach, right? Because it gets them more money. So when you're talking to a seller, here's how you basically want to talk to them, right? Hey, seller, my company and I actually have 3 different ways we can sell your home. We can bring you a cash offer tomorrow. We can sell it as is, but on the market, which gets it greater exposure. Or we can update your property and then put it on the market and get you more money. Does that make sense? Right? That's it. And that's why you have this one-stop shop mentality, because the consumer usually thinks that if they want to pursue any of these 3 approaches, they need to talk to 3 different brokers. But if you're with EXP in particular, and even if you're not with EXP, you can put together investors so that you can have a cash offer. You can put together relationships with contractors so you can do an as repaired model, right? This isn't, proprietary to me and my team and my firm, but we've polished it up and made it pretty elegant, because when we talk to sellers and we explain how we can do all 3, I've literally had a seller say to me, okay, but which one of these do I get you with? I mean, how flattering is that, right? I actually said, I got bad news for you, Jack. I come with all 3, right? So when you tell them that they have 3 options, they're usually going to respond in one of 3 ways, right? And this is what scripting's all about. You want to know what to say to elicit a response that you already have the answer to. That's the whole point of scripts, right? So if I say what was on that last screen, they are going to respond back to me with, I already know what I want, or I have a plan, right? Or I don't know what I want, coach me, or what do you think, right? Or what I want depends on what the different numbers are. right? I'll decide once I see all the options. That's it. They are going to gravitate to one of the options. They might not do it right away, right? Some people do it right away because they focus on the inconvenience continuum. Like, bring me a cash offer because I've got urgency and I don't have time to do anything to get my home ready for photos and showings and all the inconvenience, right? So depending on where their head's at and what their property is like, they're going to gravitate to one of these responses. And then you want to understand how to pitch each of them, right? Because if they say, no, I just want to sell it as is, you want to have a response for that, right? So let's start with the cash offer. If they say, tell me more about the cash offer, because that sounds pretty attractive, right? I say, well, we have a marketplace of hedge funds and we will get them to bid against each other for your home. And guess what? Their eyes light up because most people may not have a deep understanding of what a hedge fund is, but they know it's some sort of entity that has a lot of money. And if you tell them that you have multiple entities that have lots of money and you get them to bid against each other for my house, my brain tells me that I'm going to get more money. I'm going to get market value for my house. I might even get above market value for my house, right? Because that bidding process is an emotional process. Now, between you and me, these hedge funds are not stupid and they don't get emotional. They write offers below market value so that they can make money on the buy. That's just prudent investing. And hopefully you talk like that to your investors, right? Let's help you make money on the buy. But the consumer in this conversation, they don't think like that. And I'm not going to remind them of that. I'm going to let them think, oh, that's sweet. I'm going to get more money for my house, right? So let their brain run, let the endorphins release, let them get excited. Now, if they say, I don't want to sell it to cash, I've already looked at cash offers and they were all lowball or whatever, but I do want to get it on the market. And as is could mean they are lazy or don't have any money and they don't yet realize that you can do this work without needing their money, right? Or it's in really good condition. Like there's nothing to be fixed or updated. So if somebody says, yeah, I want to go as is as quickly as we can, but I want to get broad exposure, I say, great, I'll use my marketing system. And if you're on my team, I actually say, I'll use my 155-step marketing system to get you the most amount of money in the least amount of time. And that gets them excited, right? Now, what about the as repaired approach? Now, the pitch for as repaired is, well, here's how it works. We actually can remodel your house with our money and you keep the profit. And I don't know if I put in the slide. I didn't, but I'll say it here. One of the things that I follow that up with is I believe you should get a 40% ROI on every dollar invested, or else it's not worth doing. And the reason I say that is because we want to have a buffer because the market could shift, right? But if we have a 40% minimum threshold and the market shifts, you're still going to make 10 or 20%. You just won't make 40, right? So having that buffer protects me and them from spending money and selling it for less. All right. So use that going forward. I have an example in my listing presentation, which if you haven't seen it, the previous agent Power Huddle, we've been working on sellers now for the last like 10 or 12 weeks. And in one of the earlier weeks, I actually covered my listing presentation. And there's a slide in there with photos of an example property where we remodeled the house for $300,000 and sold it for $415,000 more. That's not 40%. That's about 33%, right? But the seller got an extra 115,000 and all they had to do was say yes. The house was his mom's and she had passed away. So they didn't have to move out or deal with the inconvenience of a construction site or anything. He just had to say okie dokie and we got to work. And we did that $300,000 remodel in 3 weeks and then sold it for 415,000 more. So this can be a very effective thing. I only told that story because it illustrates the benefit of having that 40% buffer in case you don't achieve the numbers you're aiming for, right? So now let's script how you're going to respond to those responses, right? If they say, oh, I've got a plan, great. Which approach works best for you? That's it. And they're going to say, I want to sell it as is, or I want cash, or I want to hear more about the remodel approach, whatever, right? If they say, I don't know, what do you think? I say, well, now that I've seen your home, here's what I think, right? Because when you get a seller lead, you don't know what the house looks like. You might be able to find an old listing with some photos, but you don't know what updates they may have done since they bought it. So you really have to reserve your decision until you get there, right? I genuinely try not to have any predisposition about which approach is going to work for them because I don't have a horse in the race. I don't really care which approach they take. I know that I can deliver on all three and I get paid for all three, right? So if I walk their property, because remember, these conversations are happening once I've gotten there, then I can say, well, your house is dated. We should probably take a look at the as repair approach. I call it our moving concierge program, right? If they are, still unsure, I tell them, you know what? I actually prefer to do the analysis on all three. And then usually when you put your options on the spreadsheet side by side, one of those options are going to jump off the page at you. So when they say, what do you think? I tell them, I don't think yet. That's basically what I'm saying, right? I'm saying, let's do the research and figure out what are the numbers. How much is the cash offer? How much would it sell for if we didn't improve it? And how much would it sell for if we did improve it, including the scope of work or the cost of those improvements? Makes sense? Right? And you can actually use that same response for option number 3. If they're leaning towards the as repaired approach, I can say, great, let's start on that analysis now, right? All you have to do is hire me and I'll start working on it. I had this conversation evening before last with the guy. And he said, I'm talking to some other agents. Can you call me on Friday? And I said, yeah. And the minute you hire me on Friday, I'll get to work on putting all three of these together. Because I'm not lifting a finger unless somebody signs a listing agreement and takes themselves off the market for other realtors, right? Now let's talk about the analysis. I actually use a single page spreadsheet, which I'll share to Autumn, and she can make it available through the Agent Collective. But it's side by side, right? So you see right here, scenario number 1, as is off market. That's the cash offer, right? How long does it take? 10 days. Or as needed, because we can take longer if that's what they want. Opportunity to rent back can be negotiated. And then this is the best part. What are their to-dos under each scenario? Well, under the cash offer, they have no to-dos. That's why it's a little smiley face, right? Scenario number 2 is as is. But I tell them, if we go on the market, I'll be able to get you 50,000 more. This is just a recent example, right? But how long is it going to take? Well, the scope of work, which will be down below, and I'll show you what that looks like, is going to take a couple weeks, and it's going to run you about $2,500. And the reason it's 2 to 3 weeks for such a small amount is because the seller is choosing to do it. You know, you'll have conversations where they're like, what we need to do before we list is I still got to paint that one bedroom, and I got to, you know, edge the lawn or do whatever, right? So this time frame will be based on a conversation. This scope of work will be based on my knowledge and experience. And then what are we going to list it for, and what's it going to sell for, right? Now, this example I did when the market was moving pretty well. So we actually could predict that it was going to sell for more than the list price. And how long is it going to take for me to get my money? 45 to 60 days from going on the market, right? Because of a financed. It's going to take us a little time to find a buyer, and it's going to be financed. Could there be a rent back? Can be negotiated, right? Scenario number 3, this is the as repaired. Now I'm done in this example. I did a CMA on what if we updated the kitchen, the bathrooms, and everything else on this house, what would it sell for? And in this example, it sold for over $1 million. It would take us 6 to 8 weeks to do that work, and it was a couple $100,000 to do it, but then it would fetch you more money, right? So in this example, the seller is going to yield $950 after he pays back our $200,000. In this example, he's going to yield $735 minus cost. So what you're doing is illustrating for people. And the reason I say one of these options will jump off the page is because of the time frames and the net proceeds, and really the work as well. So let's take a look at what the work looked like for those 3. If you can imagine these all on one page, right? They stack. The black box here on the left, that's the cash deal. So there is no activities to be done. But if we go as is on the market, we're going to have a staging consult. We're going to declutter and depersonalize, touch up paint, pressure wash, aggregate. This particular house still had Christmas lights up, clean up landscaping, blah, 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 blah. And if we do as repaired, complete interior, exterior paint, all new flooring, remodel kitchens and bathrooms, remove popcorn ceiling, blah, 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 blah. This is 200,000. This is 2,500. This is 6 to 8 weeks. This is 2 to 3 weeks, right? So those 2 views are all on one sheet, and that allows the seller to go, I want this one, or I want this one. And notice, negotiate rent back for the as repaired. You won't need this since you'll already have moved out. If we're going to remodel your home and redo the kitchens and bathrooms and everything, you can't live there. I have one of these right now where she's trying to figure out where she's going to go. Her place is already uninhabitable, but she is living there. It's kind of an interesting one. We can talk about that one if we want. So, announcement, scripting Thursdays, moving to Fridays next week. And we're going to do it every Friday starting next week. So let me go back to looking at you all and see if there are any questions. Good morning, everyone. Especially those of you that jumped in while I was kind of midstream. Did that make sense? And does anyone have any questions? Or did I just do such a bang up job? Would you guys like to see the one pager in its glory all on one page?
Yes, please.
All right.
And on the wholesale options, the straight
I'm sorry, say that again.
on this page, do you discuss this with the seller?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the way this works is your name pronounced Gan?
Yeah, Kangu.
Gangu. Nice to meet you. So the way this works is I've met with the seller. I've explained the three options and they've said, yeah, I'd like to see the numbers. This is how I deliver the numbers. So it's one page, but it gives them all of what we're going to do in the repair or remodel approach, what they're going to do in the as is approach. And if they like, I've had them where this was like 7,500 and they're like, I'm out of state. I don't have time to do this. Will you do it? And the answer is always sure. Yeah. Like I've done rehab deals and small scope of work deals where the seller paid for it, but I used to be a general contractor, so I have over 200 subs. So I can coordinate the project, or we can do the bigger project and use our moving concierge program. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll send this template to Autumn and you guys are welcome to use it. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? It's just a nice kind of elegant one place, all in one page. You can print it and bring it with you or whatever. All right. So we have 8 minutes left. We can talk more about this sort of three-pronged approach, which I think is really elegant and it helps me convert a much higher percentage of sellers. Or if you guys have a scenario that you've run into lately and you'd like to brainstorm some scripting, that's the whole point of this meeting every week, is to give you the words you need to use to compel somebody to do what you want them to do. So does anyone have a need for a script?
Oh, I have a scenario. So if let's say somebody doesn't want to do the moving concierge service and you just want to like spruce it up and get it ready for market, what are like the top, 5 things that you would recommend somebody do before they go on the market?
Great question. So obviously it can vary by house to house, right? But in general, a landscape package is one of the things that's needed on almost every house, right? Cleaning up the yard, the beds, new bark, putting in flowers so there's color. You'd be amazed at what just edging a lawn will do to make a yard pop. So that's number one. Inside the house, paint is oftentimes another pretty inexpensive and easy thing to do that really makes the room pop. So, it could be a full interior paint. I did one of those on a Bellevue listing in November. It could be full exterior. It also could just be, there's a lot of homes that have like accent walls. I would get rid of all those. What else? Declutter and depersonalize is probably the biggest thing though, right? And for that script, what I tell people is, you need to remove all of the family photos and all the drawings that your children did that you have hung on the refrigerator, etc., because they're distracting. And you want somebody to come into your home and immediately start envisioning their life in your home. And if you've got pictures of you on a cruise ship in Italy or whatever, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to be looking at your photos and distracted. So let's get rid of all that stuff, right? And here's another tip for any of you that are newer. Go get staging certified. You can take a 3-hour class and get a staging certification. You need the clock hours anyway to renew. But I did that in my first year a long time ago. And I talk about being staging certified in almost every conversation with the seller because it allows when I say it, my credibility goes up and the advice I give resonates more because they think it's coming from an expert. And I'm not a design expert, but I understand feng shui and I understand flow. And I understand staging because I took a 3-hour class 20 years ago. Did that help answer your question, Molly?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Tina, Rima, Jacqueline, Frida, anybody else have a question?
No questions. It's good to hear it again.
Good. Keep watching this video over and over, because the more you hear scripts, the more you practice them, the more you'll be amazed. You'll be in a conversation and you'll be like, wow, I just channeled my inner Ed right there, because that's exactly what he would have said.
Yes.
I don't think these are recorded. Are they recorded?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Jacqueline, and they're on theagentcollective.com. There's a section for the Agent Power Huddle, and you can find, I started doing scripting Thursdays in I want to say September, maybe somewhere in there, like last 10 or 12 weeks, although we took a couple weeks off with Christmas and New Year's. So yeah. And we've been focused on sellers. So here's a question for you all. What would you like me to address next week?
Well, Ed, I'm interested in aging in place.
In what?
Aging in place.
Aging in place.
From scripts.
So aging in place
First thing.
doesn't requires a sale of a piece of real estate, though.
Well, it usually gives them an option to either kind of like the concierge to either, have them be able to fix their place so they can stay, and then also in the meantime gain a client for a future if they decide that's not what they want to do, that they need to move.
Yeah. I mean, I think of that, Tina, more like downsizing.
It is. Yeah.
If they're looking to liquidate a large house, like I was in a house yesterday, gorgeous 5,000 square foot house. And I asked the seller, I'm like, how can you leave this place? It's unbelievable. It's so nice. And she goes, it is, but our kids have now gone and it's too much for 2 people. And I'm like, that makes sense. So, as people get older, they need less space, or they need money. Like Tina's question is more towards end of life for people. And I've sold lots of houses to fund the care for somebody, because, as we all know, and if you don't, you're going to, care for your elderly parents and friends is so freaking expensive. And so a lot of times they have to tap their equity to pay for it. So it's a wonderful benefit and service you can provide for people, especially like you can hear in Tina's voice, she cares about these people, as do I, and as should you.
You sound out her motivation as well.
Right.
Maybe that in that question.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And you have to really come across to people, and this isn't fake, this is how I think and feel. All I care about is what's best for them in their opinion, not mine. If they want my opinion, I'm happy to share it. But in the end, what matters is that they're happy with the outcome. So you got to go into all these conversations. I've literally gone into conversations hoping they choose not to work with me, because they are in their best situation already, in my opinion. And I'll tell you what, as much as I'd love to sell that house, I get referrals out of those people really quickly because they feel guilty that they decided to stay. And that's a win. Like I'll get more referrals from that person than one sale would have been had I sold their house. So just approach anybody and everybody with a genuine interest in helping them achieve their goals, and you will win. All right, guys and gals, it is 8:31. So I'm going to wrap this up, and you'll see in the marketing and advertising for this, we are going to meet next Friday at 8 a.m. and we'll talk about downsizing and aging in place. All right. So have a great rest of your week, and thanks for hanging out with me.
Dad.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.